Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be checking out Batman issue 145 by Chip Zdarsky and Jorge Jimenez. With the Joker's origin out of the way, Zdarsky returns us to the present with an action-packed issue that shows us a Gotham with Zur-En-Arrh as its premier Batman. And not surprisingly, it's a Gotham gripped by fear as Zur, now in a sleek new failsafe body, is punishing crime harder than Batman ever used to. The Bat family meanwhile try and determine if this actually is Bruce or not, and this allows Zdarsky to do some really neat bits with some of the family members, notably Jason Todd, whose part in the book almost feels like Zdarsky kind of apologizing for what he had to do with the character in Gotham War, something that was completely out of his grip. And for those who don't know, Batman in that series forcibly brainwashed Jason into believing that he had some sort of fear, so every time he got into a battle or got into some action, it would trigger a fear response and he would just get scared and it would make him basically useless. And he has since overcome that sort of stuff, but it was a very, very silly storyline and I have no idea why it was in that story to begin with. It was really, really stupid. But this feels like Zdarsky kind of apologizing for that and actually giving Jason a really neat scene where it looks like he's about to believe this Bruce, but then he's just like, nah, I don't believe you. I know what Bruce is actually like. You're not Bruce, you're just something trying to pretend to be him. And it's actually a really creepy scene because we learn through Zur that he's pretending to be Batman, and the idea is that Bruce fought Failsafe and then Failsafe won, but Bruce also won by defeating Failsafe. But to help his dying body, he uploads himself into Failsafe's body, and that's why we end up with a Bruce who's this weird holographic head inside of a bat suit here. I think that's a kind of a neat story, but it's also one that none of the Bat family believe at all, and I quite like that they don't. But it leads to a really cool sequence with Jason and Zur sort of laying down the line that like he doesn't want to hurt the family, he wants to be part of the family, he wants to be with them, but if they do cross that line and break the law, he will get involved with them. I kind of like that he's setting boundaries there. It's pretty cool. It also hints at the fact that he wants to try and gain some sort of humanity. It was something that he was vehemently against and thought was the thing that was making Batman weak, his Bruce side. And I like that he's seemingly doing everything to try and gain some sort of humanity, or at least like a robot's take on humanity, which seems to be very sort of sterile and sort of mundane. And I'm looking forward to seeing if Zdarsky is going down that route to try and give him some humanity, or have the villain realize that, oh, I actually do need Bruce in me to actually be a better Batman. I didn't realize that to begin with. While Zur is ruling the night as the new Batman, Bruce meanwhile learns that he and the Joker are in Zur's private prison under Blackgate, and they aren't the only ones, as Vandal Savage is also there. Kinda meaning that Zdarsky is just not bothering with those backups where he had him being set up as someone who might be running for commissioner, being backed by the other billionaires in Gotham. I guess that's not really happening anymore. I mean, it still could happen since there is a slight time jump here thanks to Bruce being knocked out, but it's weird that we see the aftermath of that story before that story actually really ends up getting going. It's really strange how these things are working out, but I don't think we're going to see that Vandal Savage really pay off anywhere. It was just like an idea, probably a leftover from Gotham War that they just want to get rid of now that they're past that. And honestly, I think it was one of the better stories that sprung out of Gotham War, a Vandal Savage who was running for commissioner. That's quite an interesting story, and he's living out of Wayne Manor. That's really quite cool, but alas, I guess we're not doing that anymore. So Bruce tries to escape the prison, and he finds Zur's robotic guards prove a little bit more even for his Batman. And again, a real boon of Zdarsky's run on Batman has been how human he is making his Batman. He's just a guy, and like most of the time, he's not got fancy gadgets to rely on, just his fists and decades of training, and it makes him a much more compelling character. I also have to imagine it's probably a fun challenge to write Batman like that and not have to rely on some Deus Ex Machina that, oh, he has a gadget for that, or he actually thought about that 20 issues ago and has some sort of contingency plan for all of that. It must be a real challenge and really sort of like get the creative juices flowing to say, okay, I've got a Batman, how do I get him to beat this test without relying on a gadget or something? It's really quite cool that he's actually going that route with the character. Zur meanwhile delivers an ultimatum to the city that Batman is back and better than ever, so crime better watch out. But this draws the attention of Mayor Chris Nakano. Yes, a character that you've not heard of in a long time is now back, and despite the bit of character growth and softening on masked heroes they had when he was a brand new character, he just kind of reverts back to being anti-vigilante again. I feel like the writers don't actually know what to do with Nakano as a character, since he's been stuck in this loop of loving, then hating, then loving, then hating masked heroes. It also feels like maybe there's some sort of editorial mandate where they can't kill him off or something, because I would have assumed that would have been what would have happened by now with this character who served his purpose, because Nakano's been around since Future State. That was quite a while ago, so props to them for keeping him around, but he's kind of served his purpose and his story, so why is he still around? Surely they would have killed him off by now. Again, maybe it's an editorial mandate that they can't. Zdarsky is sure to mention that he seems to be under pressure from outside forces to deal with this threat, and I have to feel that's probably some basic setup for Amanda Waller teaming with Zur, which is something we actually see in the artwork for the Absolute Power event happening this summer, that Zur is going to be teaming with Amanda Waller, or at least working with her in some aspects, so I have to imagine that she's the pressure that wants him cracking down on superhero beings, being that her whole thing now is that she hates superheroes. So at least there is some sort of hint at the character having some sort of story to work with, even if it is just the tiniest little bit. While Nakano deals with that, Zur begins tying up some loose ends and targets the Riddler, violently taking down the villain before confronting Damian, who I think is probably the most out of character here, as he just immediately believes that Zur is his father thanks to Zur regurgitating some memory that he had from Bruce and Damian's time together in the past. I could see this as a ploy by the Bat family to get someone close to Zur, and no one could be closer than Batman's own son. I could see Zur wanting to bring him into the fold, so I could see them doing some sort of plan to get him in there to sort of spy on Zur for them. But I don't really know, it's just kind of a weird scene where Damian just utterly and wholeheartedly believes that this is his father. Zdarsky hasn't written a lot of Damian, and as I said, this could just be a trick, but maybe once the story opens up a little bit more and we get an idea of where he's going with these characters, it might lead somewhere. But right now, as a first impression, I'm not really buying it. It was kind of out of character, especially for someone like Damian, who is notoriously paranoid about everything and everyone. The book leaves off on one final cliffhanger as Bruce is brought before the warden of Zur's Blackgate prison, and we find out that it's Daniel Capito, his and Joker's old mentor, who apparently wasn't killed when the Joker attacked him back in Joker Year 1, only getting seemingly a little scarred on his face, and that was about it. I'm glad he wasn't killed, since Daniel is a really interesting character, and now his relationship to Batman and Joker will be a fun thing to explore in the present parts of the story. And I suppose he also had to be in the story as well, since Batman doesn't believe Joker's story about how he was trained by Daniel, so now we have Daniel here to sort of confirm that. So I'm intrigued to see what that dynamic is going to be in the next issue. So far, Zdarsky's return to the present day storylines in the Batman has been pretty good. There was a couple of mishaps here and there, specifically with Damian, but I'm willing to let the story unfold to see where it's all going. I'm really interested in Zur running around as Batman. I love his new costume by Jorge Jimenez. It's sleek, it looks really futuristic. I like the idea that he's got this sort of holographic Bruce Wayne in his head that sort of appears every now and then when he takes the cowl off. Really cool design, and I'm intrigued to see what they're going to do with Zur as a character long term, just because he's involved in the Absolute Power event and he seems to be sticking around as like a villain for at least a while. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Zdarsky has in store for us and for that character. I'm going to give this issue an 8 out of 10.